Hi guys, it's Third Eye Tenchi here. I've hijacked the Alestiel04 channel again to give everyone back everyone's favorite angel, Alestiel. Right, so let's go over the deck. The deck has gotten a few minor changes in LBT04 and no support in LBT03, which was very disappointing. It was why I didn't appear for a very long time, but let's start. So our grade 0 is the standard starter. When rolled upon, if you went second, draw 1. There's a very important interaction with the grade 1, which I will explain now. So when you ride over with the grade 1, on place basically, you bind the top card of your deck, and then after that it activates one of two effects. If you bind a odd grade card, you may Soul Blast to ride for the next turn. If you bind a black wings card or even grade card, well, your opponent cannot attack you with grade 1, so it's anti-rush. So one common complaint I've seen some newer players of Alestiel say is that, oh, I keep binding white, I keep binding black. So right, just basically look at your hand, see whether you're likely to bind black or white next, and just choose to draw first or bind first. You have to declare it, it's part of the rules. So no cheating here, we are honest people. Right, so moving on to the grade 2 Alestiel. So when you ride upon the grade 1, or just when you ride, you send the card in your bind zone back to your bottom of your deck and you bind the top card. So it doesn't plus you yet, but it still changes your card in the bind zone for more options. So it's a skill on White Wings, it's just basically counterblast 1 and gain a crit. It's very good for early game pressure, and the Black Wing skill is also prevents your opponent from guarding with triggers from their hand for this battle. So it's also extremely good offensively. Like your first grade 1 is more, how do I put it, advantage based, and your second grade 2 is more offensive. So that's how it goes so far. And now we are going to talk about the grade 3. Well, since Lyrical 2, there have been a lot of changes to this deck, and I would say the biggest one is the change of the boss unit. Finally, in our right deck, we have Holy Angel of Blessings, Alestiel. So basically, she has the dress up ability, which means that during this fight, all copies of her have the same name as the original Archangel of Twinkling Wings, Alestiel. So if there's any abilities that require either of them, this both counts. You can also search it out for Persona Right for Persona searches. And it also counts for Persona Right. So it's the same skill as Alestiel previously, but instead of just adding a card and just binding a card from top deck, now if there's no card in your bind zone, you can just bind a card from the top deck. But you just don't add the card to hand because there's nothing in the bind zone. So this allows you to play more different right lines, such as right now we have the more popular choices such as the Sienna right line against aggro. You also have the Cure right line, which are more for grade 2 gaming. But for right now, we'll just stick to the Alestiel right line. Okay, so her first skill, her Black Wing skill, the one that you most likely want to use first, is discard 1 from hand, search your entire deck for any Black Wings card, and call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. Basically, what this allows you to do is to get a Fanail from your deck. We'll describe what Fanail does later, but it's a very important setup card. Okay, so moving on to the White Wings effect, it's one of the main parts of this deck that really make it pop off. So, at the end of the battle, this unit attack, when you're on White Wings, counterblast 1. So basically, you discard 1 from your hand and you search your entire deck for a card with Archangel of Twin Wings, Alestiel, with the original card name from your deck, and you write it as stand and you lose 1 drive. So basically, this is a rewrite. Yes, you do lose a drive, but you do gain the effects of the crit and the 5k, considering that you're still in White Wings. So that is already a second attack with bigger numbers. But there are ways to make this number go up even bigger, as we'll see later. So, let's move on to the grade 3s. For our grade 3s, we play 3 copies of your Persona Right, 3 copies of base Alestiel, and 4 copies of Lyrical. As I've already gone over 3 copies of the Persona Right, let's just move on to our secondary Vanguard Alestiel. So, basically, why are we running 3 copies? It's not just for the rewrite, it's also when we are resource starved or counterblast denied, she's also not too bad of a persona right target because it allows you to still hit numbers and do something without being too reliant on your resources. So there are times where you do want to persona right instead of rewriting. So keep that in mind. Her skills are just basically at the start of your main phase, choose one card from your bind zone, add to hand. If you add it, then you just bind the top card of your deck. So yes, you do need a bind zone card for this to activate. So that is why Alestiel could be counterplayed during a period of time before she got a new form. So that, do take note of that. And for White Wings, she gains 5k and a crit during your turn. And during your turn, for Black Wings, she minus 5k to all of your opponent's units. It says all, so it bypasses resist and it also affects the rear guards. So do keep that in mind. Yes. So we'll now talk about one of the very important parts of the deck, Lyrical. Lyrical, most of the time, isn't a controversial decision to run at 4. Because, frankly speaking, if you high roll into her, it's very good. And also you can use Vanguard, which I'll be talking later, to put her in the bind zone. So, basically her skill is just, her first skill is just when your Vanguard is placed, you may bind this card, and then if you do, draw 1, which activates her second skill. When this card is bound until your opponent's next turn, all of your units, Black Wings and White Wings, are effective. So even if you are fighting Sienna or whatever, which may cause you to have both black and white in your bind zone, which will cause you not to have any abilities active, as long as she's bound during that time frame, she can also hop in and save the day, as you'll keep your wing skill active. Speaking of ways to get Lyrical into the bind zone, the next card we'll be talking about our Grade 2s. Vanguard and Emile. Both are really good cards and I'll just describe why. Starting with Vanguard. So I'm sure those of you who follow the lore website have seen like Vanguard take Alestiel out for a bit. And well, she also takes the card from the bind zone out for you, and then you can put another card back in your bind zone. Well, it's compulsory. You just on play Soul Blast 1. If your Vanguard is Alestiel, add this to hand, add your bind zone card to hand, and you bind that card. Normally, you want to bind Lyrical, but there are also other times where you don't have Lyrical, right? And you will just use her to Soul Blast 1 because the card in your bind zone actually enables some of your plays. And that is also something to keep in mind. You don't really just need to use her for setting Lyrical. Just keep that in mind. And her Black Wing skill is something that we didn't use very often in the previous meta because we are very resource starved. But when this unit attacks a Vanguard that is grade 3 or greater, you may counterblast 1, and then it will minus 5000 power to your opponent's Vanguard. So, basically, you have a lot of options how you want to use the skill. You can use this before Alestiel rewrites, you can use this after Alestiel rewrites. Just basically pick whichever you feel is most appropriate that will get you the most shield value out of your opponent's hands. Well, speaking of very impactful cards, let's move on to the Emile. Emile, we are running at 4 here. You might recognize her from set 1, and there's a very good reason why she's a mainstay. So on Black Wings, when this unit, at the end of the battle, this unit attack while boosted, choose one of your rear guards or soul, and you may return it to hand. If you return a card from soul, you may put this unit into your soul. So basically, what this card does is it just toolboxes your entire field or your soul on the Black Wings turn, and you may just return it to hand, or just you can just boost it with a soul crit and just add a soul crit back just to put more soul. And the reason why this card is so good is because it grows with the entire card pool. The better on places you have, the better even just generic cards like the cycle card, which I'll be talking about very soon. This card just enables a lot of things. You are missing a persona right, just boost something and then just add the persona right from the soul to your hand for the next turn. If you are missing counter charger, you can also just grab it later. Yes, this deck finally has a counter charger. I'll get into that later. If you are missing a copy of base Alestiel for the rewrite, you can also get it from soul. So this also just really extends into a lot of unexpected plays. So speaking of the cycle, we'll get into it right now. So let's talk about our new grade 1s and some returning fan favorites. Wow, what a cute red.
Oh my god, such a funny red.
Okay, I think Alestiel04 has left us, unfortunately. Let's just move on with the rest of the great ones. Right. And then... yes. Let's talk about it. Okay, so... okay, I'm having too much fun here. Right. The funny red. It is a funny red. You put 2 cards from your drop or your slow that originally belong into your right deck back into your right deck face up. And depending on whether it is placed on the rear guard or guardian circle, it gains 2 effects. If it's placed on the guardian circle, it gains 15k shield, which is just a 20k shield. Pretty much for almost no cost, which is amazing. And then it recycles a card with the same name as your Vanguard if you place it on the rear guard circle. So, since our deck is very reliant on Persona riding for some of its plays, and also you would appreciate extra copies of base Alestiel, supposing that you run out, this card is a really good card to have, but you also have to be aware that you do not want to remove the right deck Alestiel if the right deck grade 3 Alestiel, if you don't already have another grade 3 Alestiel, the Easter one, in circulation. So just do hold back on that. And it's also the reason why I talk about MIL. So supposing you use her just to get your Alestiel back from the drop, and then you just boost an attack on the Blackwing's turn, you just return it to hand, and now you immediately have extra shield, which is amazing. Frankly, yes, this card is solid, and it's just cute as a good addition. Next, let's talk about Seraphiel. So she's a new addition to this deck. I'm sure you should know by now, but in case you don't, the main play is that you start with Easter Alestiel, boost an attack, and then when you rewrite, it restands. So basically, you want to assign your trigger power here and any criticals here or your rear guards. In fact, this was actually used in some multi-attack combos with Justine for quite a while, but since we are now more focusing on a better center column and more longevity, we are no longer going towards the Justine game plan. Why be a worse Minerva when Minerva actually exists? Let's just do our thing better. Okay, speaking of new cards that reward you for playing well. Detail. So Detail skill is basically on White Wings. At the end of this turn, at the end of your turn, when your Alestiel Vanguard has been placed 2 or more times, if you have no face up damage, you may move this into your soul and countercharge 1. So basically on your turn 3 or Persona right turns, you just basically have more soul and more countercharge. But do be aware that yes, you really need to plan out your turns very well, and this just basically rewards you for aggroing correctly. It doesn't give you extra countercharge more than that actually allows you to go positive. So you still have to plan out your countercharge usage correctly. It just prevents you from being countercharge denied and also gives you a bit more soul to work with. Overall, a solid card. And something that hasn't appeared in a very long time, which is Erimuel. So basically, Erimuel's skill is that when she sways on the rear guard circle, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, yes, this card benefits from Ezel being a thing. I know, very funny. Next, Counter Blast 1. For every 3 of your odd grade units, choose one of your rear guards and it may gain 5k and a crit. You cannot choose the same unit twice. So basically, the point of this unit is to just have units to have attacks on your rear guard that forces your opponent to guard early, because they don't want to take 2 damage. So even if it's just, well, a very small swing, you are still forcing out shield value. So it's very impactful when you're going for your very strong push, especially if you sequence this as the first attack where Alestiel's minus 5k hasn't come online yet because you're still on Easter Alestiel. We are only playing her as a 2-off because, well, we are not going to use her skill a lot anyway. We just need her at the right time. Last but not least, for our great ones, we have our perfect guards. Wow. We have angels and devils. Very nice. I am fulfilled. Now let's move on to talk about our triggers. over trigger, you are playing the lyrical one because, well, now your rears matter a lot more. So that's solid. Soul crits for the combo with Erimuel. And some crits, vanilla crits. We are total running 8 because it's crits, it's a restand deck. Rewrite, sorry. So you want more pressure, and also Yukina is Vesco, don't forget that. And for our other trigger options, we have 3 effect draws for Peace Reliancy and 4 heals because, well, this is card 5 Vanguard. Okay, so summarize, I'm really glad that the recent support has shown to support the rewrite game plan, and now we are finally no longer pigeonholed into just being worse Minerva. That has been a very good day for the Alestiel community. I know you are out there. Hello.
So thank you so much for coming over to cover. I wanted to give someone else a chance because very frankly, I think you guys are very sick of me talking about lyrical decks that are not Felty Rosa. This video is very long overdue. There's a lot of people that have been asking for it, including, you know, the famous Yuki, who was a pioneer in the Alestiel generation. I'm not sure where she is now, but I'm just very grateful that I get a chance to cover this deck again. I may just bring this to WGP for the pure fact that it's a better avant-garde. Shit in hell avant-garde. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.